Okay, welcome guys back to another video. Today I thought I'd do something a bit different and show you guys what are the costs of running and maintaining a turbocharged Civic Type R FN2. Specifically also what went wrong with my car, what issues I've had and what's broken down. So I'm going to be splitting it up between essentially what a standard Type R costing and servicing will be, and then specifically for a turbocharged car, or in this case my car, what I had to do in addition to, let's say, a stock Type R. So let's jump straight into it. The first thing that I've got is the oil change and air filters, so your normal sort of service. I've just put 6 of those over the kind of 5 years as a rough estimate. Now when you're looking at that, you are looking at about R1,000 just on parts. So that's the oil filters, the sump washer, and then the air filters. So that totals at about 6,000 Rand. That's just on parts. Now, obviously, as I mentioned here, I've put DIY, which means I do the labor myself. From a Honda South Africa perspective, you're looking at about 2,000 to 2,500 Rand per service. So that would work out at about 12,000 Rand. But because I've done it myself, that's the costing that I've put in. The next thing are spark plugs. So within the 5 years of ownership, I've changed the spark plugs once to the NGK Iridium, and I'll put the part number below, and that costed me plus minus about 800 Rand. During the 5 years, I also replaced my tires. So I put on Toyo Proxies. That was about 2 years ago, and it costed me 6 grand for all 4 tires. The next one is quite a big ticket item. That's my clutch. So I had that replaced in the 5 years of ownerships. Again, I did it at an independent specialist and not at a Honda dealer. So it's an ACT stage 4 clutch, and that costed me 8,000 Rand, including parts and labor. The last one is the brakes. So these are the brake pads, and I went through quite a lot of sets during my 5 years before I upgraded to my big brake kit, or my DC5 Brembo calipers, if you want to call it that. And I've put in 3,000 Rand there for multiple pads that I've gone through, whether it be EBC Yellows, Ferodo, Brembo. I've tried quite a few. So what that gets me to is, if I total all of these, a total of 23,800 Rand over a 5-year period, or for the guys in the UK around 1,240 pounds, which converts to around 4,760 Rand per year, or 250 pounds per year. So standard Type R, not really that difficult to maintain or expensive to maintain. Obviously a clutch, as an example, may be cheaper if you're going with a stock clutch over a high-spec racing clutch. Your brakes will also be cheaper. You shouldn't go through as many sets as I have, as an example. So moving now on to the turbocharger part and what went wrong on my car, what broke, or what I need to maintain, different to a standard Type R. And surprisingly, there isn't a lot of additional maintenance here versus a stock Type R, except in my case where I've broken things which have been my fault. So the first one was the fuel pump. Now what happened with the fuel pump is I went down to Cape Town with the car, which is about a 1,400 kilometer drive. It's about a 10,000 drop in altitude, and I didn't accommodate the map settings in terms of boost, in terms of fueling, or anything like that. I just drove down and drove back up. What happened was, when I was down at the coast, my boost pressure increased, and for some reason or other, my fuel pump then gave out when I came back up to Johannesburg. So I had to replace a fuel pump. If you look at one of my previous videos, you'll see the part number there on the fuel pump that I bought. Again, I fitted it myself, and the part costed me 2,500 Rand. The next one is a clutch. Now why I've put it under a Turbo R and not in this sort of column is because you shouldn't be going through clutches that often within a 5-year period. Understanding mine was a race clutch, and I used to daily the car. I did a lot of traffic, which isn't the best for the clutch. It wore out quite quickly, which means I needed to do a second replacement on the clutch, and hence it's over there. Okay, now the next two, the CV joint. This again was my fault. So what happened here was, one night when it was raining, I was stupid enough to turn the boost up and try and have some fun in the wet, and I threw my CV out. So that costed me a good 2,500 to fix, and as the CV went out, it took out my ABS sensor as well, which I then had to buy a new one for, again fitted it myself. So yes, stupid mistake, costed me money, but bear in mind most of these costs I'm giving you are just parts alone. If you work in labor with a technician or with a dealership, it's obviously going to be a lot more. Then last year, the turbo started using a bit of oil, so I did preventative maintenance to make sure nothing went wrong with the car. So I had the turbo seals, the bearings, everything replaced. I then also had a new AN fitting, which basically feeds the oil into the turbo. That costed me 4,000 Rand, so I just had it reconned and I put it back in the car. And because I hit the 5-year ownership period, I also did a compression test. This was done at Honda officially just to make sure the engine is running fine, there's no issues with it, and that all came out clear. So that was also just a peace of mind check. So this costs then totaled to 18,300 over a 5-year period, or 950 pounds, and per year another 3,660 Rand over a standard Type R essentially. Now, when you combine the column on the left with the column on the right, you're looking at about a total maintenance cost for my specific car, 42,100 Rand. That's over a 5-year period, which translates to about 8,500 Rand a year for a turbo Type R. Now, that's actually not a lot of money if you think about it. It's, in my opinion, quite reasonable. Obviously, the Civic Type R, the K series, the FN2s, any Honda in particular, is generally very reliable. So you're not going to spend a lot on parts breaking a lot, unless you're like me and foolish and break things out of your own accord. And if you are able to start working on your car, doing basic services and basic maintenance, you're going to save a lot of money on labor costs. So I hope this has given you some sort of indication on what it costs to run, or what it costed me to run my turbo conversion versus a stock Type R. If you take kind of these out here, you'll see that the additional cost for running such a powerful car is not that much, for obviously what you're getting in terms of a power increase, and the fun factor and reliability as well. So I hope this answers any questions you may have if you're thinking of doing it yourself. Again, this is just maintenance costs and what's broken. This doesn't include the mods and what I've spent on that in the car and parts. That I've done in a previous video on the build spec of my car, and I've also done a mod list in the comment section in a previous video. So hope you like this. Please stay tuned for more videos to come. Cheers.